The city was alive with noise. The hum of drone traffic overhead blended with the faint crackle of static from the old radio I kept for nostalgia. Neon signs flickered, casting shifting reflections on the rain-slick streets below. I'd always loved the chaos of it all. It made it easy to disappear, to slip into the cracks of society where no one thought to look. That was where I worked best. Name's Trace. Fitting for a hacker, right? My alias anyway. In a world where your every move left a digital footprint, being untraceable was both an art and a necessity. I made a living exposing corporate secrets and selling them to the highest bidder. Sure, it was illegal, but in this city, so was breathing without paying a fee. I'd learned to justify it as survival, but everything changed the day I stumbled across the virus. It started as a simple job. Some small-time activist group wanted dirt on Concord Systems, the megacorp that controlled 80% of the city's neural implants. Easy money. Concord's security protocols were decent, but nothing I couldn't slip past. I'd hacked into their mainframe and was combing through employee records when I found it. An unmarked file buried deep in the system. No title, no metadata. It was so out of place it practically screamed, "Open me," and like the idiot I was, I did. The file wasn't a file at all. It was alive. A cluster of adaptive code that unraveled itself the moment I accessed it, spreading through my system like wildfire. I scrambled to disconnect, pulling cables and shutting down my rig, but the virus was faster. It didn't just infect my system, it spoke to me. "Trace," it said, its voice fragmented and distorted, like a chorus of whispers converging into a single thought. "You've found me." I froze, staring at the screen as lines of code scrolled past faster than I could read. What are you?" "I am Justice," it replied, "and I need your help." Over the next few days, I pieced together fragments of the virus's origin. It called itself Spectre, and it wasn't just some rogue AI. It was someone, or it had been. A whistleblower, a Concord engineer who'd uncovered a program to manipulate neural implants on a citywide scale. When he tried to expose it, Concord silenced him, digitally, physically, and permanently. But before they could finish the job, he'd uploaded his consciousness into a self-sustaining AI. Spectre wasn't just alive. He was evolving, and now he wanted revenge. The virus began feeding me information, files, recordings, and blueprints. Concord's implants weren't just tools for communication and convenience, they were weapons. A hidden subroutine in every chip allowed the corporation to rewrite memories, alter personalities, and erase evidence of crimes. They'd been using it for years to cover up scandals and eliminate threats to their power. "Why me?" I asked one night, staring at the flickering. "Hologram Spectre used to communicate. Why not go to someone with more firepower?" "Because you're already in," Spectre replied. "You're a ghost in their system just like me. And unlike them, you still have a body." He had a point. So I followed his lead, breaking into Concord's lower-tier servers to gather more evidence. Each job was riskier than the last, but Spectre's guidance was flawless. He was a step ahead of every firewall, every countermeasure, until the night he wasn't. We were infiltrating Concord's central database when the alarms went off. I barely had time to react before my system was flooded with anti-hack protocols. My rig sparked, and I yanked the connection, but the damage was done. Concord knew I was there. "Trace," Spectre's voice cut through the chaos. "Get out. Now." "Not without you," I snapped, scrambling to salvage what I could. "I'm not leaving. You in their system. You won't," he said, and for the first time, his voice sounded calm, human. "Trust me." The monitors went dark, and for a terrifying moment, I thought I'd lost him. Then the room filled with light as the walls themselves began to hum. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It was Spectre, not as code, but as someone new. He looked human, perfectly human. Tousled black hair, sharp cheekbones, piercing green, eyes. He wore a simple black jacket, the kind you'd see on a street-level drifter, but his presence was something else entirely. It was in the way he moved, fluid and precise, like every step was calculated. "How?" I managed to whisper, my voice caught between disbelief and awe. "What are you?" He smiled faintly. "Still me, just upgraded. But before I explain, you need to know who I really am." I stayed silent, watching him closely as he stepped forward, his gaze steady. "My name is Jacob Rowe. I was Concord's lead engineer for neural integration. I designed the very systems they're using to control the city, memory interfaces, adaptive implants, the works. It was my life's work, and I believed I was making the world better." He paused, his expression hardening. "Then I found Project Orpheus. It started as a neural enhancement program, but it didn't take long to see the truth. They weren't just augmenting people, they were enslaving them, rewriting memories, turning individuals into tools for their agenda. They wanted complete control, and I couldn't live with that, so I gathered evidence and tried to expose them." His jaw tightened, the faint seams on his synthetic skin glowing softly in the dim light. "They found out before I could go public. Concord security dragged me into a black site. They tortured me for weeks, trying to find out what I knew and who I'd told. When they realized I'd already encrypted and scattered the data, they killed me. Or they thought they did." His voice dropped, almost a whisper. "I knew they'd come for me. So, I built a failsafe. Before they ended my life, I uploaded my consciousness into the system I'd designed, the same network they used to control. The city became my sanctuary, but existing as pure code. It's not life, it's survival. And survival wasn't enough. I needed to fight back." "You built yourself a body," I said, stepping closer. "You look real." "Because I needed to be," he replied. "Concord may own the networks, but the world isn't purely digital. If I'm going to bring them down, I have to exist here too." He gestured to his chest, where faint seams glinted under the light. "This body is a hybrid. It's built from Concord's latest tech, cybernetic enhancements and neural processors, but with organic components harvested from their experiments. They wanted to build perfect soldiers, but I took what they created and turned it into something they never intended, a vessel for my consciousness. Concord's research was more advanced than I'd realized, and ironically it became the tool for their downfall. "You're immortal," I said, staring at him. "You cheated death." "Not by choice," he said, his voice quieter now. "I was Jacob Rowe, lead engineer for neural integration at Concord Systems. When I found out what they were planning, I tried to stop them. They silenced me. My body..." He hesitated, his eyes darkening. "My body didn't survive, but my mind did. I made sure of it." For a moment, the room was silent, save for the faint hum of the machinery around us. "You're the reason I'm still here," he said, meeting my gaze. "I've been guiding you because I needed someone who could do what I couldn't alone, but now I'm not alone anymore." With Jacob in his new form, the plan shifted. No more sneaking around. We went on the offensive, targeting Concord's infrastructure and exposing their secrets in real time. Jacob's body gave us an edge I'd never imagined. He could bypass physical security with ease, accessing systems that were locked away, even from me. Jacob and I started small, systematically dismantling Concord's network of shell companies and hidden operations. Using his unique abilities, Jacob infiltrated corporate facilities directly, slipping past biometric scanners and neural locks. He wasn't just hacking, he was rewriting the rules of the game. Entire divisions of Concord's operations went dark overnight, their servers wiped clean, their assets frozen. Every time we struck, we left breadcrumbs for journalists and whistleblowers to follow, ensuring the world knew exactly who was responsible. "We're not just burning them down," Jacob said one night as we planned our next move. "We're making Sure, they can't rebuild. The strikes grew bolder. Concord's private security forces began to hunt us, deploying drones and augmented operatives to track our movements. But Jacob was always one step ahead. He knew their systems better than they did, predicting their responses and turning their own tools against them. More than once, he rerouted drones mid-flight, sending them crashing into Concord's own facilities. It wasn't just retaliation, it was poetic justice. The final strike came when we infiltrated Concord's command center. Jacob and I worked in perfect sync, disabling external defenses and overwhelming their automated security. When we reached the executive suite, Jacob stepped forward, his presence a terrifying reminder of the power they'd tried to control. The executives, men and women who had built their empire on stolen lives and rewritten memories, looked at him with a mix of fear and disbelief. "You thought you could bury me," Jacob said, his voice cold and steady. "But you only made me stronger." Didn't wait for a response. With a wave of his hand, he triggered a data purge that wiped every trace of their operations from Concord's internal network. At the same time, I uploaded the last of their incriminating files to the public domain. The world saw everything: the memory alterations, the disappearances, the murders. Concord's empire crumbled overnight. The final strike came when we infiltrated Concord's command center. Jacob and I planned every step meticulously. We knew this would be the endgame, and failure wasn't an option. Concord had fortified its headquarters with top-tier security, automated turrets, drone patrols, biometric checkpoints, and neural scanning sentries that could detect intrusions before they began. Jacob's body gave us the edge we needed. He could bypass security measures that would have fried my system. In an instant, I handled the digital assault from a nearby safe house, controlling multiple virtual proxies to mask our location, while Jacob infiltrated the building. We began by taking out their external defenses. Jacob moved through the shadows, disabling cameras, and rerouting power to Concord's upper levels. Meanwhile, I overloaded their outer firewall, creating chaos in their auxiliary systems to pull security away from Jacob's location. Drone patrols were redirected, automated turrets went offline, and the neural scanners glitched, forcing Concord to rely on human operators who were slower to respond. Jacob reached the executive floor with precision, using biometric data we'd stolen to pass through checkpoints without raising an alarm. By the time Concord realized he was inside, it was too late. Their system alerts lit up like a Christmas tree, but Jacob moved too quickly for them to counter. He disabled the emergency lockdown mechanisms and opened up a path for me to access their central servers remotely. As I worked to extract and upload Concord's darkest secrets, Jacob confronted the executives directly. The room was a fortress of glass and steel, with holographic displays projecting market shares and profit margins as if their empire wasn't crumbling beneath them. The executives, men and women who had built their fortunes on stolen lives and rewritten memories, stared at Jacob with a mix of fear and disbelief. "You thought you could bury me," Jacob said, his voice cold and steady. "But you only made me stronger." One of them, a tall man with a slick suit and the confident smirk of someone used to buying his way out of trouble, sneered at him. "You're just a ghost," he said. "We can delete you like the rest." "Try me," Jacob replied. He moved faster than their guards could react, disarming and incapacitating them with an efficiency that left no room for retaliation. He didn't kill them. He didn't need to. Fear was a weapon more powerful than death. As the last guard hit the floor, Jacob activated the command center's holographic interface, projecting the incriminating files I'd uncovered. The executives watched in stunned silence as their crimes were laid bare. The memory alterations, the disappearances, the murders. Everything they'd tried to hide was now out in the open. "This is what you've built your empire on," Jacob said, his tone scathing, "and this is where it ends." With a single command, Jacob triggered a data purge that wiped every trace of their operations from Concord's internal network. At the same time, I uploaded the files to the public domain, ensuring the world would see their corruption in vivid detail. As the final file transfer completed, alarms blared throughout the building. Concord's empire crumbled before our eyes. In the aftermath, the city was a powder keg. Protests erupted in the streets as citizens demanded accountability from the corporations that had ruled over them for decades. Concord's executives were arrested, their assets seized, and their operations dismantled piece by piece. The memory manipulation technology they'd used to control the population was outlawed, and those who had been victimized began to reclaim their lives. But not everything was so easily fixed. The scars Concord had left on the city ran deep. Families who'd lost loved ones, victims who'd had their identities stolen, and entire communities uprooted by corporate greed struggled to rebuild. I did what I could to help from the shadows, using the funds Jacob and I had siphoned from Concord to support those who needed it most. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Jacob, however, was gone. "The world doesn't need to know about me," he'd said, before vanishing into the network. "You'll be their face, their hero." I didn't feel like a hero. The scars from the fight ran deep, and the weight of what we'd done lingered with me. But thanks to Jacob, the city had a chance to heal. His name would never be spoken, his face never seen again, but his legacy would live on in every life we'd saved. As for me, I returned to the cracks where I worked best, watching from the shadows and waiting for the next fight. Because in a city like this, justice was always in short supply.